I'll even go get them.
Good evening, everyone. Everyone settled in? Nice to have such a nice, happy-looking crowd here tonight on a cold evening. So thank you all for coming out. I'm Trustee Sigurdsson, the Vice Chair of the Board. I'll be your Master of Ceremonies, I guess you could call it tonight. Before we continue, this is going to be streamed and online, so we check and see if people can hear and see if it's all good. Excellent. We'll begin with our land acknowledgement. The Louis-Riel School Division brings together a community of schools on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, Inanewek, and Dakota. Our division is located on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. We recognize that Manitoba is also the traditional land of the Anishinaabe and Dene. We respect the treaties made on this land and acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and present. We dedicate ourselves to authentic alliances with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and cooperation. The ongoing development of LRSD's land acknowledgement is guided by our Indigenous Council of Grandmothers and Grandfathers, and we thank them for their generosity and collaboration. And we'd like to acknowledge the presence of our trustees today. Trustee Garrier is here somewhere. There she is. Trustee Kolachuk over there. Kolachuk. Trustee Nordheim, I see, is over there as well. Trustee Palmquist was here and had to leave for a different meeting. Trustee Simoniola, I believe, is on his way, and Trustee Turner. Not sure if she made it in. She's in traffic. We offer our regrets on behalf of our chair, Trustee Nemeth. We acknowledge also the members of the senior leadership team who are present today. Assistant Superintendent Cadets, Assistant Superintendent Cormac, and Assistant Superintendent Jean Paul. Also, our Assistant Secretary Treasurer Ross here, and our Secretary Treasurer there he is over there. And we also have our Superintendent Christian. All hard work. And we also have a special guest today, our City Councilor for St. Patel, Ryan Hayes. Hayes is here. Thank you all for coming. Our motto is thriving learners and flourishing communities. Our mission, our vision and mission, our vision is for all members of our community to excel as caring, confident, capable, and resilient lifelong learners who contribute to a democratic and sustainable world. Our mission is to provide a safe, inclusive, and engaging environment where personal and collective learning are valued, and each one of us reaches our full potential. Last June, this board adopted our new multi-year strategic plan for 23-27. It's 4 strategic priorities and 25 strategic actions. Throughout our budget deliberations, we've anchored our conversations to the 25 strategic actions in our MYSP. And I should say that the strategic priorities and our multi-year strategic plan, all of our decisions at the board are rooted in that document. That's our guiding principle. Now, at this point, I'd like to welcome Trustee Pam Kolachuk and Secretary Treasurer Jamie Rudnicki to walk us through the draft budget for 2024-2025.
Thank you, Trustee Sigurdsson. So there should be a slide up there that shows a multi-year strategic plan. So we're just going to start with the agenda. So if you don't know me, I'm Pamela Kolachuk. I'm from Ward 4 in Louis-Riel School Division. In my day life, I love budgets, love money. So Jamie and I have some things in common. So it's always an honor to be able to come up here and talk about the Louis-Riel School Division budget and funding for 24-25. We're also going to review the draft budget for LRSD for 24-25. And we will work through some thoughts on the thought exchange that Superintendent Michaud will go through. And then we will have some questions and closing thoughts. And everyone, every table will have the opportunity to be able to provide thoughts to, hopefully there's at least one employee from LRSD at every table. I'm pretty sure there is. There's lots of employees here. So if there isn't an SLT at your table or a trustee at your table, we will make sure that there's somebody there to gather your thoughts in order to bring back to the board. Am I starting over? Okay. So I guess let's do a poll. How many people went through the thought exchange and provided a thought in regards to what they wanted in this year's budget? Hi. Awesome. Okay, and how many of you rated a thought? That's even better. Were you surprised by any of the thoughts in the top 10? Yes, okay. Do you want to share? I can walk around with the mic. These guys are figuring things out. Are you almost ready?
So we're having a problem on Zoom. Where is Emily? Hi, Emily. So you're not seeing the slide deck? Can folks hear us, Emily? Great. So that much we've established. Sorry for folks on Zoom and on YouTube. So we're going to try to make this work because it was earlier. So I want to be in Zoom. I want to share.
You want to share what you're seeing?
I'm sorry, folks. We're just going to try to get this to work.
Are you gonna leave the slide up? They don't know where anybody. I want to try. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, awesome. Okay. Chat her over. We're ready to talk about money. Listening? Because we're behind now. So we're gonna have to speed things up. Okay, so the board and the senior leadership team obviously have spent a lot of time working over the last few months in regards to identifying the costs of operating. Okay, I'll keep talking. Operating and staffing schools, the 40 schools in 24-25. And as you can see here, our costs for 24-25 for staffing is around $202 million. Supplies and services are $37 million. Supplies and services include things like EAs, buses, all of those things. Librarians, which we love in LRSD, are all part of supplies and services. And then infrastructure costs of 2.2 million. So since February 1st, we've been revisiting these costs relative to the provincial funding that's been provided. So everybody knows that the province has announced their funding and LRSD is receiving $120.2 million, which is a 5.9% increase. We then considered the revenue sources that we have within LRSD. For example, our facility rental fees, our lunch supervision fees, our student supply fees in K-8, our paid bus seats that we have, any interest revenue that we're earning, are some of the largest sources where we make up that $2.8 million. So we have $2.8 million in other revenue. So as you can see, we're still not even on our teeter-totter here. So in order to balance the budget, we're presenting an increase in the minimum to the local property taxes of 6.5% in order to balance our budget. So from a local perspective, we need to raise $118.7 million in order to pay for our staffing, our supplies and services, and our infrastructure in our 40 schools. So right now, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie Rudnicki, our Secretary Treasurer and CFO, for a more detailed look at what I've just shared.
Thank you very much, Trustee Tolchuk. To further expand, I'd like to draw your attention to the 2024-2025 draft budget in comparison to our current budget. So last year, the trustees approved an unbalanced budget of a little over $2.4 million. So you'll see that on the 2024 column. This was the first time in LRC's 20 years of existence that an unbalanced budget was passed. This was a result of insufficient funding to meet our needs, and as a result, we had to use accumulated surplus to cover our funding gap. Now, focusing on the 2024-2025 column, we are now proposing a balanced budget. As you can see at the bottom, it's blank essentially. So provincial funding has increased by a little over $6.7 million, representing a 5.9% increase. Reflected in this little number is an increase in operating support of 3.6%, with the remainder of the 5.9% tied to the new funding regarding the Universal Nutrition Program. For other revenues, we are expecting a 2.95% increase, or a little over $80,000. Now that percentage is increasing because this reflects the increase in enrollment for the year. So as Trustee Pollock Kolochuk had mentioned, these are our parent fees that we assess, like paid transportation fees, student supply fees. None of those are being proposed as an increase. However, we are getting a little bit more revenue because of the increase in enrollment. The last component of our funding is our local funding. This is the money we raise through assessment of school property tax. We are proposing a budgeted increase of $15.9 million, or a 15.48% increase in the assessment value. Now, this doesn't reflect the actual percentage increase in the property owner. This reflects the increase in funding. Factors that go into this calculation include area growth, as we are a growing school division, and then the timing differences between the taxation years between fiscal year, which is our taxation year, and our fiscal year, which is our school year. For budgeted costs, staffing is budgeted to increase 8.24%, or a little over $202 million. Supplies and services is budgeted to increase 10.59% to a little over $37 million. And for infrastructure, we're proposing an increase of 131.01% to $2.2 million. Details on the increases in the costs Trustee Kolochuk and I will explain in the next few slides. And so, just one back slide. So just to put in perspective, this is kind of the breakdown between staffing and operating. And so staffing represents about 84% of our total budget, and our operating costs, so that's goods and services, makes up 16% of our budget. So now I'll pass it off to Trustee Kolochuk to go into more details about our operating costs.
Thank you. Okay, so as you can see on here, we continue to use the teeter-totter example. So in LRSD and in the economy, we know that inflation continues to be a pressure, and the pressure comes from the top down. And we've had 8 years of austerity in provincial funding, which costs have continued to rise at a higher rate than inflation than in regards to the funding that we received. The projected enrollment, I need to click, hold on a second. See, 7.7% inflation rate in 2023 and 3.9% in 2024. The projected enrollment for 2024-2025 is projected to be 925 more students than we had last year. That's essentially a high school. 31 of our 43 schools and office buildings are over 50 years old. So we have a lot of aging infrastructure in LRSD. And because of inadequate and unpredictable funding, we've had to divert dollars from operating to pay for staffing. As a result, our buildings have been neglected, just like public infrastructure across the city and the province. And that's why we use some of our, that's why we went into deficit last year, was to pay for some of these things that were needed. So we can't continue down this path. The budget sets a new path by making local decisions to reinvest in our aging buildings by increasing the maintenance and local infrastructure budget to $14 million, which is an increase of 12.49%. With growing enrollment and the challenges of still waiting for a new school in Sage Creek and additional spaces in our high schools and some of our elementary schools, we are projecting 6 additional bus routes for a total of 91 routes in this coming school year, which with the transportation pressures, we could see an increase of transportation costs of up to $5.5 million. And supplies and services. So costs for licensing and fees, computer hardware, support technology for the division have all increased by 15%. Insurance costs for buildings have increased by 15%. And we've increased school budgets by 10.74%. And these are local in-school budgets to address increased costs of curricular materials, student supplies, and general operating costs. Heat, electricity, and water costs are budgeted to increase by 6%. And as most of you who are homeowners, you see the increase that are happening in hydro and water. Departments that support student learning have also experienced significant increases to deliver the programming. So for example, food and textile costs to support human ecology and woods and metal costs to support industrial arts have all increased significantly post-pandemic. As a result, our instructional services budget has been increased by 12% to maintain programming. So we have budgeted a 3.62% increase for Indigenous Department, which is the elders, and 3.16% for Healthy Living, which is equipment and fees. To respond to our inflationary pressures, we are proposing a supplies and services budget for 2024-2025 that is increased by 8.56% to a total of $17 million. And finally, we applaud the Manitoba government for investing $1.5 million in the building of a universal nutrition program in our schools. And we've recently learned that a minimum of 65% of the 1.5 million must be spent on food. I'm going to turn this over now to Secretary Treasurer Rudnicki to offer some more details. You get to talk about more numbers.
Nothing excites a crowd like numbers. As Trustee Polchuk touched on, we have aging infrastructure that requires a lot of attention. Past budgets have not kept up with need and cost escalation due to inflation. So in this budget, we're proposing an increase to our maintenance and infrastructure budget by a little over $1.5 million or 12.49%. This increase will start us on the road to addressing our infrastructure needs. Now, talking about roads, the next item on the list is transportation. Due to enrollment increases, we're projecting a minimum of 6 additional routes for the 2024-2025 school year. Additionally, we're in the last year of an agreement with our transportation service provider. And so we have now issued a new request for proposals. Based on cost structures similar to other school divisions, the anticipated cost for transportation could increase up to about 10%. So based on the addition of routes and cost escalation, we're proposing an increased budget of $286,383 or a 5.4% increase from prior years. Next on the list is the nutrition program. The province has announced the start of a new universal nutrition program to address student hunger in schools, which is a barrier to learning. Our portion of the funding is $1.535 million. For budgeting purposes, we have allocated 100% of the funding to foods and supplies. However, as Trustee just mentioned, we have now learned that the province has given us guidance that we can spend up to 35% to support salaries in delivering the program. As we work through operationalizing this new initiative, some of these costs will shift to salaries, but for budgeting purposes, it is allocated to food and supplies for now. And finally, we have our supplies and services category, which we propose at an 8.56%, or a little over $1.4 million increase. For the increase, for the increase of student and clinical supports, that's $308,303 increase. This represents increases to support Indigenous education, industrial arts, healthy living, and student services and French program. For information systems, Trustee Polchuk touched upon the increases that have to do with supporting the division when it comes to hardware and software needs. And so that increase is reflected in an additional funding of $620,967. For schools, we have increased our budgets by $387,360 or 10.74%. This is another budget area where past budgets have not kept up with need and cost escalation. We have increased budgets to address rising costs for student and classroom supplies, printing and photocopying, and general operating expenditures. And finally, we have our staff learning and LRTA PD budgets. For the LRTA Professional Development Fund, this is a contractual obligation that's required in our collective agreement. And so that balance is dictated by the agreement, and there is no increase for this year. For staff learning, we have increased the budget by $98,000. This additional dollars is being directed towards school staff to help with their professional learning, particularly in the areas of EI and student and information systems. Now I'll turn it over to Trustee Klobuchar to talk about our biggest area of expenditures and that's our budget. That's our.
Our budget is a lot of money too, yes.
Sounds like a parent.
Okay, staffing costs. So the projected enrollment for 24-25 is 17,764 students. So that's an increase of 925 students, as I mentioned before, over 23-24. Our challenge then is not only to maintain class size as well, but also staff for at least 900 more students. As our overall student population grows, so do the complex needs of our students. We have more needs in our classrooms that we need to navigate, and we'll discuss more about that later. Despite a previous government doing away with a focus on class size and no longer funding with a focus to maintain a reasonable class size, LRSD has continued to pay attention to class size by diverting dollars from operating and non-teaching staff to add classroom teachers. We now have a new government recommitting to lower class sizes, and divisions will need to track class size on the website starting in September. LRSD is already doing this, so we're ahead of the curve. And as of 4:30 p.m. today, we're showing an average class size of 21.7 students per class in grades K to 8. There will be more on this later in the presentation with Superintendent Michalek. Finally, we need to acknowledge our teachers' CAs expired in 2021, our contract agreement. One of our QP employees group's contract also expired in 2022 and the other in 2023. We need to continue anticipating that there will be future settlements and retroactive pay likely in 2025. So these costs add up. And as those are the pressures that are coming, and these are the costs now that we need to pay for. So the cost to staff LRSD in 2024-2025 includes $19.4 million to pay for benefits and the payroll tax, which is an increase of 6.82%. In 2024-2025, we are budgeting $48 million for non-teaching staff salaries. That's an increase of 8.5%. In 2024-2025, we are budgeting $134 million for teaching staff salaries. That's an increase of 8.35%. So for 2024-2025, we are setting aside $3.4 million from our accumulated surplus in anticipation of collective agreement settlements. Again, we applaud the Manitoba government for investing $1.5 million new dollars to start building a universal nutritional program in schools. And we've learned we talked about this already. I'm going to pass this over to Superintendent Michalek to talk about class sizes and what we're doing to support student needs and they're in the classroom.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about that pressure of maintaining a reasonable class size with growing enrollment. And so just to reiterate, when we were here last year proposing a draft budget, it was based on a projected enrollment. And again, here we are this year proposing a draft budget based on a projected enrollment. So this is what we do when we budget, is we try to anticipate the future. Another word for budgeting could be planning for the future. And so this is what explains this increase in enrollment. Now, I'm looking here at a class tracker. It's in beta. This will replace the existing class tracker we have on our website. The intention here is that we're making it easier to navigate a lot of information for the general public. But this is based on the staff and the students as of 4:30 today in our schools. And so what this tracker is showing us right now is that In K-3, we have an average of 21 students in a classroom. And in grades 4 to 8, an average of 24 students. And a target we set for ourselves and that we look to throughout the year is 20 in K-3 and 25 in grades 4 to 8. Now, how an average plays out across all of these schools is another thing. So we can choose, for example, to isolate Archwood School. And now our numbers change. In Archwood School, we can see that the average class size K-3 is 18, and it's 20 in grades 4 to 8. And regrettably, it isn't like that across all schools. If I go to Island Lakes Community School, one of our schools where we're experiencing a lot of growth, it's a struggle to make class size look like it does in Archwood. We can see what it looks like here. 25 in K-3, 28 in 4 to 8. What this class tracker isn't picking up is that we have added teachers to Island Lakes Community School. There are more teachers working in grades 5 to 6 now than there are classrooms to help navigate these pressures. And so if we looked at if we looked at a ratio, say, students to classroom teacher, we would pick up on that. And so we're also building this notion of staffing ratios as well, as a way of having a conversation with each other and with the community we serve as it relates to this idea of class size, but also how it's more than just about classrooms in a school. It's about all the many staff that are serving students and that are supporting students. And so it's also about just the number of adults relative to the number of students in a school. And we don't want to forget our high schools. So in all this talk of class size and trackers, we often forget to talk about classrooms in grades 9 to 12. And here again, the only way we're going to be able to talk about these things by looking at what we know and trying to make sense of what we know is to talk about ratios, student to staff ratios. Because in a high school, given the way we make sense of grouping students relative to learning, there are no homerooms per se. We really do have to talk about ratios. So we're talking about class size right now in this conversation as it relates to a budget for next year. But we're also talking about class size each and every day as a senior leadership team and making decisions here and now based on the budget that was adopted by the board and the budget envelope we have to work with to respond not just in building a budget in the month of February for the following year, but throughout the year. Another pressure, Trustee Kolachuk. It's not as hard as mine. Another pressure Trustee Kolachuk mentioned was the growing complexity of needs students will experience at times. And so here we're seeing another one of our reports, ways in which we try to make sense of those needs and their complexity with each other in LRSD. So we try to describe these needs to each other in a way that is consistent amongst schools. And so behind these numbers, and as the number would suggest, a 3, and a 3 accompanied by more letters and symbols suggests more complexity of need And a smaller number with fewer letters suggests complexity, but less complexity of need. We can see that year over year, needs have been growing. When we look at 2024, when we look at needs as of today at 430 in LRSD, it looks different from what it looked like pre-pandemic in 2018-19. And I can go ahead and have a look. Try to bring up 2018-19. And so we can see that it was 9.2% in 2018-19. And it's 13.8% today. And we can see also how those needs are growing as well, especially in the early years. So the other thing we've observed coming out of the pandemic is that our youngest are the most made vulnerable by the ongoing repercussions of a pandemic as they come into our schools. And so all of this is an insight into the senior leadership and board deliberations that have transpired over the last many months, building towards today and sharing with the public we serve our vision for the future, the board's vision for the future, and the means to see that vision come to fruition. And the board has, as much as our vice chair suggested at the opening, our board is talking about a 4-year vision. And so this is just the first year of that 4-year vision. So the growth, the pressures result in these proposed changes for staffing next year. If the board adopts its budget on March 12th, it will mean 27.31 more teacher FTE in classrooms. And so of that 27.31, 15 more elementary school teachers and 12.31 more high school teachers. It will mean 5.25 more student services teachers in elementary and high school, 4.75 more vice principals, and 2 more clinicians. And on the non-teaching side, it will mean 19.23 more educational assistants to support teachers in classrooms and student services teachers supporting those classroom teachers. 5 more support staff, a combination of clerical, custodial, and maintenance in schools, and 3.11 more casual staff in schools. And those are the details as it relates to staffing schools in relationship to this proposed budget. So I'm going to hand it off to Secretary Treasurer Rudnicki to give us a little more detail.
Perfect, thank you. So I guess before I move on, I just wanted to mention my wife was saying that I'm echoing on Zoom because she says I'm much closer to the laptop, and I suggested it's because I'm a lot shorter than Christian and Pam are, so that's why I'm naturally closer to the laptop. I apologize to people on Zoom. I'll step backwards. And she's not going to appreciate that comment, Pam. On the couch tonight. Thank you, Superintendent Mishlik. In summary, our budgeted salaries and benefits for the 2024-2025 school year is proposed to be $202,561,428. This reflects an increase of 8.24%. And on this slide, I just wanted to highlight that we are looking at a teaching staff complement of 1,245.83 full-time equivalents. That's what FTE stands for. And for non-teaching staff, 1,059.04 FTE. When you layer that on the staffing costs onto supplies and services and infrastructure, we have a total budget of $241,829,040. So as promised earlier, what does that mean to our community in the way of taxation? As you'll see from the information provided, we kind of looked at a whole wide range of options. And so just to give you a few options here, basically the break-even point is the middle section, and that reflects a 6.5% tax increase to meet the basic needs of our students. The current mill rate for this year is 11.89, an increase of 6.5%. Will result in an increase of the mill rate to 12.403. What I would like to note to everyone is that our mill rate has gone down for the past 5 years. In 2019, the mill rate was set at 13.681. And if that mill rate was held constant or the same as today, that would generate an additional $28.5 million for the school division. But as we know, through past 5 years, the mill rates have decreased. When looking at real dollars, the tax increase based on the average home valued at $381,300, and these are statistics from the city of Winnipeg. The average cost to the taxpayer will be $129.84. And just as a frame of reference, the average increase of property values increased by 0.37% from the prior year as per the city of Winnipeg. Another way of looking at it is what is the increase of 6.5% essentially get us as a community? First, we have to balance our budget. So as I mentioned earlier, we are currently have an unbalanced budget of $2.4 million. And so 0.95% of the 6.5% increase will go to balancing our budget for to bring us back to zero for next year. To address staffing due to enrollment growth, 3.96% of our 6.5 million will be directed towards addressing staffing. Inflationary pressures and adjustments, 1.22% of our 6.5% will go towards those costs. And finally, dollars that we don't see is just the general property value increase of 0.37% that I just mentioned. So so far, we've discussed with you an option, and this is an option of what a 6.5% increase would get us, which is a break-even budget. This option will address enrollment growth and start us on a path to address other needs like insufficient funding of our schools and start us on the path of maintenance or basically addressing the needs of maintenance and infrastructure. I would like to hand it back to Trustee Kolochuk to present a second option for consideration.
Thanks, Jamie. Okay, so as you can see here, Jamie's presented 6, 6.5, and 7.5, but he hasn't talked about 7.5. So we're going to talk about 7.5. So why consider a 7.5% increase? LRSC likes to go big. We like to be bold and audacious. We look to our community and how we can support in our community in order to make our community better. How can we support the economy? How can we support mothers? How can we support early learners? If I go back you will see that a 7.5% increase versus a 6.5% increase is $20 a year. $20 a year for the average homeowner that owns a home that's valued at $381,300. So what does a 7.5% increase mean? I almost want to like drum roll. It means full day K in LRSD for every school, every child in Louis Riel School Division. This means that we are helping our community. We are helping moms go back to work. We're helping daycares have more spaces. We're helping those youngest learners who've had the most impact from COVID have an experience to come to school all day, every single day. It's a huge impact on their learning. It's a huge impact on the families, and it's a huge impact on LRSD. And there is no other school division other than DSFM that does this today. So what does this mean? It means 30 schools will have full day K. There'll be 59 classrooms of full day K. That means every single school, including Island Lakes, who doesn't have any room for full day K, is being looked into how we can make this work. Full day K. The teaching staff will increase. Today we have some full day K, but the total teaching staff for full day K would be about 30. I'm going to round it up to 31. Who's a 0.003 staff member? I'm not sure what that equals, like leg in for 3 minutes and out. Okay. So it costs $3.1 million to staff full day K in LRSD. Educational assistance, it's about $890,000 or 21 EAs in classrooms. Furniture and resources to, make these classrooms available to these kids. And I hope I'm not echoing. Jamie's wife can text him if I am. It's $112,000. This is the one-time cost to make those classrooms available. And we're going to save in transportation costs of $382,000. So to be able to do full day K in LRSD, it's going to cost us $3.7 million total. Don't you think that's something we should do as a community for LRSD? Is increase property taxes by an extra $20 overall for those average homeowners, or 1% overall, in order to ensure that we have full day K in schools. It's also going to help those grandparents that have to pick up their grandchild at noon or at 4:30 or drop them off because their grandchild will be there all day, every day. So our current cost for full day K in LRSD, we have 9 schools that have full day K. So that means that there'll be 21 more schools that have access to be able to have full day kindergarten. There'll be 17 classrooms is what we currently have today in LRSD. We have about 9 teaching staff and we have 8.5 FTEs. And our transportation cost savings is $138,000 in those schools. So our current cost for full day K is $1.1 million. So the difference to make full day K happen, or full day kindergarten happen in 24-25, that's this September coming up, is 21 additional new schools will be getting full day kindergarten. There'll be 42 new classrooms for full day K. We'll have 22 additional staff to teach those children. There'll be 12.5 additional educational assistants for a cost of $554,000. I mean, you guys can read this, right? You don't need me to read out what the millions or thousands of dollars are. Furniture and resources we talked about as the one-time fee, and then transportation cost savings. So a projected additional cost of $2.5 million in order to have full day kindergarten in all our schools. And I can tell you as a parent who has, well, they're old enough now not to be in daycare. But this is a savings to parents who have children in daycare in kindergarten of over $5,000 a year. That's a lot of money. And you can go work now because you don't have to be at home with your child half the day. Or maybe you don't need to go to work and you can just, I don't know. Have some mom time. I don't know. So why universal full day kindergarten? I'm going to turn this over to you. Superintendent Michaud, and he's going to go through how we came to this proposal, audacious idea as a board and senior leadership team.
Thank you, Pam. So here again, I'm going to share an insight into the deliberations the last few weeks between a senior leadership team, a board, and a school community. So why full day kindergarten? Well, because we have a quality public education system. And it's a quality system because it's a universal system. And we're able to expand on that quality because it's universal. With the exception of the youngest children in our system. So what really isn't sitting well with us anymore, having experimented with full day K since 2016 and having a third of our schools provided with full day kindergarten is that this isn't the way we welcome all of our students in schools. And so we believe that for public education to truly be universal, our youngest learners, the learners we welcome into the space we call LRSD for the very first time, should be with us the full day. And so that has to happen for 2/3 of our schools. But we also believe that there's a strong connection between quality early learning in public schools and quality childcare. That there's a relationship of reciprocity here. So, according to Statistics Canada, more than half of Manitoba parents struggle to access childcare in 2024. According to a recent study by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, more than 76% of preschool-age children in Manitoba live in areas with insufficient childcare spaces. This is as true in LRSD as it is for the rest of Manitoba. According to the CBC, Manitoba is planning to introduce 23,000 new childcare spaces by 2026. There was an agreement signed with the federal government last year. But those spaces are specifically for children under 7. So what this tells us is that without the public school system stepping up, we won't be able to meet that obligation. That solving our childcare dilemma requires us to solve our before and after school dilemma. And that solving our before and after school dilemma starts with solving our kindercare dilemma. Starts with caring for our youngest children for the full day. To find the wherewithal to care for school-age children before and after school, so that childcares can look after children before they enter school. We're going to need to provide full-day kindergarten. And why we know this is because it's how it's happening in 7 provinces and 1 territory. So in Canada, for some time now, Newfoundland and Labrador, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Quebec, Ontario, British Columbia, and the Northwest Territories have offered full-day kindergarten to 5-year-olds. And many of the provinces are talking about offering it for 4-year-olds and doing it. Ontario is the leader when it comes to kindergarten. And so it's time. It's time for the 3 remaining provinces and remaining territory to do the same. In Manitoba, we have 1 school division. that's offered full-day kindergarten for, I believe it was at the early beginnings of its inception. So if memory serves me well, la Division Scolaire Franco-Manitobaine comes into existence in 94. And so my 29-year-old and my 25-year-old enjoyed full-day kindergarten when they were in school in the DSFM. And so I've been like a broken record, for those who know me, about full-day kindergarten for some time now. And I'm surprised to be sharing this possibility with you this evening. Pleasantly surprised that I work for a school board that has decided to go here with its community. That is proposing to all of you to make this courageous investment. And now I'm excited and curious to see where the conversation will lead in the coming weeks before the board ultimately needs to decide what will be its budget for 24-25. So again, if the board ultimately decides on March 12th that it is going forward with a 7.5% increase to the special levy and universal full-day kindergarten in LRSD, it will mean that we have to roll up our sleeves as staff in LRSD in collaboration with our childcare providers to make it come to fruition by September. And we've talked about what that means. Above and beyond what we need to do to continue to look after things relative to 900 more students and the growing complexity of schools in 2024. So I'm going to hand it off to Secretary Treasurer Rudnicki to give some final thoughts about the draft budget and what we heard from the community. And we'll get you talking at your table groups soon, I promise.
Thank you very much. So just two quick slides left, and then we'll break into some table discussions. So basically, this is just summarizing what the two options are for the proposed budget for 2024-2025. One that reflects a 6.5% budget as a break even, and then for an additional 1% increase, which is $20.04, or even if you want to break it out even finer, $1.67 a month. What it would look like to introduce full-day K to our communities. And so I just want to leave leave on this note. So this is some of the feedback that we received from our thought exchange that we had opened up for I think it was roughly about 6 weeks. And so the number of participants that were part of the thought exchange was 1,683 participants. They shared 1,377 thoughts. They rated, there were 74,535 ratings. And I just wrote a lot more numbers as an accountant. So congratulate me on that one. And so I'll just give you I'll just quickly read it in case people can't see it in the back. So on side A, the top or the one thought, the main thought was infrastructure and resources. So many responses highlighted the need for improved infrastructure and resources such as air conditioning, better bathrooms, updated technology, and improved sports equipment. Respondents also suggested the need for more classrooms, outdoor spaces, and wheelchair accessible areas. Some respondents also mentioned the need for more books and library resources, as well as the need for better internet connectivity. On the other side of the scale, or not the other side of the scale, a different thought, I guess I should say, on side B thought, is student support and class sizes. A significant number of responses emphasized the need for more student support, including smaller class sizes, more educational assistance, and more individualized support for students with special needs. Respondents also suggested the need for more clinicians, special pathologists, and other specialized support staff. Some respondents also mentioned the need for more support for teachers, including training for English as a second language instruction. And the kind of common theme or the common thread amongst all the thoughts that came from the thought exchange, despite differing opinions on how to achieve it, all respondents agreed on the importance of focusing on student success. This includes providing the necessary resources and support for students to thrive, ensuring equitable access to technology and other resources, and creating a safe and comfortable learning environment. Responses also agree on the importance of extracurricular activities and other opportunities for students to develop confidence and well-being. And this was just the top rated thought of all the thousands and thousands of thoughts out there. And so the participants emphasized the need for more education assistance and resources to cater to the diverse needs of students, including those with special needs, English as an additional language, and academically low students. They highlight the importance of providing appropriate support based on individual student needs with trained and experienced staff, and ensuring equal opportunities across all schools, regardless of location or budget. The participants also stressed the need for ready, available professional supports in schools, such as psychologists and speech therapists, to assist teachers in supporting students with significant needs. They advocated for smaller class sizes to facilitate better teacher-student interaction and effective learning. Additionally, they called for more literacy support, diverse books in libraries and classrooms, full-day kindergarten, and before and after school care to support parents. And so that basically takes us to the section on share your thoughts and ask the questions. And I'm going to hand this over to Trustee Sigurdsson to lead us into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Nikki. A lot for everyone to take in. And I just wanted to say a few words before we turn this over that last year when we stood before you with our draft budget, which we eventually passed, we didn't have power for taxation. And we were facing a tremendous financial crunch. And we made what we believed at the time, we still believe, was a bold decision that we were not going to cut. We were not going to cut teachers. We were not going to raise class sizes. We weren't going to turn off the lights anywhere. We were going to keep things going. And to do that, we had to go into a deficit. And that was a very tough thing to do, but we made that decision. We said at that time that that was unsustainable. We could not continue to do that. This year now, the 64 and other measures, we have a little bit more power. And you can see that the 6.5 that we were looking at is simply, it may seem high, but it's simply to keep the lights on. That 6.5 is just what we need to not lay off any teachers, not close any programs that our parents and our community and our families all depend on. So that's the decision we made. Then we made the decision to go a little bit extra because we have listened to our community. And we do understand the needs of our parents and the needs of our families to add the funding. And we've done it not just because of what we heard tonight about the daycare situation, bringing families and parents and mothers back to work and daycare. Those are all very, very important. We also have done it because of student success. And we're very, very committed to student success. And we hear all the time about the test scores and for the province of Manitoba. But we know from experience, because we started the full day K pilot project in certain schools some time ago, and we've been expanding that year after year. And we've been tracking it. We're very proud of the fact that we follow data and we look at data before we make decisions. And we've tracked the data that student success, student learning for reading, for writing, for mathematics have increased in those students who have had that access to full day K. So that's one of the main reasons why we're looking at doing this. And we're hoping that everyone can buy in and everyone can understand what we're doing and agree with us going this direction. So thanks for that, listening to me on my little monologue there. But now's the time where you can all chat amongst yourself and discuss what you've heard so far today. There should be someone at each table who can, an SLT or a trustee or some other employee who can make notes, who can facilitate the conversations. So we're going to leave you to it for a few minutes. If anyone has any questions or wants to something that comes up during your discussion, just raise your hand and one of us, trustee or superintendent, will come over and help out with that. So we can certainly do that. Anybody is in on the Zoom, you can put questions in the chat. But
Amelia was.
More smiles when I said 5,000.
Okay, everybody. Sounds like everybody's having fun out there. Lots of great conversation. But I know it's getting a little late in the evening and also folks might want to get home. So if we can, we're hoping to do, we're really glad you were able to, sounds like have such full conversations there. Everybody's still going. Hopefully what we'd like to do is take a few questions, and we have a few questions on Zoom as well we can answer. But if there's anyone here who has a question for us on what you've heard so far tonight, happy to have someone answer it. So, anybody? Seems like everyone's happy. That's all good. Nope, have one there. Or we do the questions on.
Is there questions here? I have a microphone.
Oh, yes.
And,
Send it out with the microphone.
okay.
That's what we need.
Anybody? I saw a wave over there.
There we go.
I'm just wondering if you can speak on the increase spending in the infrastructure. There was quite a large, significant increase in that section there.
Sure, I think Jamie would be best to talk numbers.
Thank you for that question. I guess, when we look at the maintenance of our buildings, there's kind of three, I guess, layers to this. We have what's called basically our maintenance budget, in which we allocate dollars to fix the little things. So if there is, a tap broken in the washroom, or a toilet broken in the washroom, or some tiles off the floor that need to be replacing, basically just to go in the maintenance of the building. Second layer, and that's the large you saw, was the what was called the I think it was called infrastructure. And so what that is those are a bit of a larger dollar price items, but under the threshold in which it would qualify for provincial funding. So it's still self-funded from the government. So that would be a sense of replacing a flooring or carpeting in a floor, fixing a wall or drywall, putting in new windows, possibly air conditioning in schools. And so they're larger than small dollar items, but they don't meet the capitalization threshold in which we would get funding for from the provincial government. So that kind of would sum up that question. Does that make sense? Yeah, I'm getting nods.
Examples?
Any other questions? Come on. I knew Ina had a question.
Hi, just more of a comment on the full-time daycare. So, honestly, I think it's a novel idea, so congratulations for actually presenting it. When you look at the dollars, how can you debate an extra $20 to actually facilitate that? I guess I'd be really curious, when you look at the chart across Canada, yes, there's only a few more provinces that have yet to adopt full-time daycare. I'd be curious, our board or Christian, or have we had conversations with other divisions? Like, are we sort of leading the pack and hopefully subsequent divisions will follow? Have there been conversations with the province of Manitoba? Do they ultimately support this and looking towards LRSD to kind of lead the way and set the pace?
Yeah, I'll turn this over to Christian, but we have been piloting full day K since 2016 in our schools. So we've been taking that information as well as we've been having that in our schools since 2016.
So how I'm going to answer this is by saying that we're not wanting to take, we're not wanting to stand out as taking a lead. I think what we're wanting is for the whole of the community in the province to see that, to acknowledge to itself that we have this festering dilemma when it comes to childcare. And we have the means to make a difference. And we can be inspired. We don't have to go looking very far. We don't have to go look to Europe to be inspired about how you bring about that change. We can see it all around us across Canada, but we can also we know it is working in Manitoba. When I look at the conversation my colleagues in the DSFM have with each other, have with their childcare providers, it just, again, looks so much more hopeful, so much more sustainable than the one we know we could be having for the whole of the province. But it takes a little courage to talk about what it's going to take. Because ultimately, if we're going to build onto what we've built, which is amazing, an amazing public education system that is the envy of the world in many ways, just not the envy of the world as it relates to its relationship to early childcare. And, but given how we are the envy of the world in so many other ways, we really are on the cusp. It's going to take just so very little to figure it out together with our childcare providers. And so if by going here right now, we happen to be first, it's not that we want to be first. It's that since 2016 and coming out of the pandemic, we've found a way, we found the wherewithal to make it happen in a third of our schools. And when we see how life-changing that has been for children and families in a third of our schools, and we see the enduring impact of the pandemic, we're saying we have to move. We can't go on. And because we know how to do it, we can do it. And we can unburden families from this obstacle. And again, it's just a step towards something more comprehensive, a renewed relationship with childcare providers, and just what we all wish for families in LRSD is that when your newborn comes into the world and you live in LRSD and you look to childcare for that newborn, that childcare provider is connected to a school, not necessarily in the school, but is in a relationship with a school that is in your community, and everything just flows as it should from cradle to career.
Okay, we're going to take a question from online. So Carla asks, when will we be able to see high school class sizes broken down by schools, courses, grades, etc.?
Yeah, so we're just a little ways away from sharing more than a classroom tracker, but a student to staff ratio tracker K to 12, so that we can also talk about those staffing ratios in our high schools. So that'll be coming soon in the coming weeks and made public.
I have a question from Kim. Does the LRSD have a large surplus? And maybe Jamie can answer this question. Because in the previous slides, we showed that we had a deficit. So a deficit means we are spending more money than what we have. Surplus means we have more money than what we spend. And how does the board manage to cover the costs of operation?
Yeah, but so while Jamie gets ready to come up and talk surplus, when we talk surplus, we should have added a qualifier to the word surplus, and that is accumulated. So when we talk about setting aside dollars in a surplus, we're talking about the surplus that we've been accumulating as a school division for the last 21 years. And what I can say about surplus, again, it'll be about a projection of what we anticipate that surplus to be, that accumulated surplus to be. And we haven't really talked about that projection yet. But the Auditor General has always suggested to school divisions that they maintain a 4% accumulated surplus. That is good fiduciary responsibility when thinking of a surplus, an accumulated surplus, accumulated over many, many years, not just 1 year.
Yeah, so, definitely over the past few years, our accumulated surplus has been dwindling. As recently as 2 years ago, we roughly had about $10 million surplus. That has dwindled down to roughly $3 million now. And what has taken that hit is obviously our unbalanced budget from this current year, as well as the unsettled wage settlements that are potentially coming down the pipe. And so as we go from year to year and we have unsettled wage agreements, we've been setting aside money in anticipation of that. So we are recommended by the province to have about 4% of operating expenditures as a surplus, as kind of a rainy day fund. Right now, we're looking at about a 1% right now. So it's I think it's just a sign of what we've had to endure over the past 5 or 6 years when it comes to funding levels. And we've been managing the best that we can. And we've been living within our means in order to meet the needs of our students. And we will continue to do that.
Thanks, Jamie. So just a message from your wife. You need to move over because we'll only see your shoulder.
Ask her if I need to lower this so she can see me on the camera up there.
Anybody have any other questions?
My question specifically is, where is the focus on high school students? Because you did mention a lot about the ratios to teachers, but where is the specialized support for us?
Well, it is I know that the focus has been full day kindergarten for the last little bit, but if we go back to the slide where I shared about staff. We are going to increase the number of staff in our high schools by an important number. And what we're going to see evolve over the coming years is as we see this bubble of an increase in student population that is mostly expressed itself in the early years, middle years, we're going to see those numbers start to shift and have to make greater staffing increases in high school as those students that are presently in elementary school, that big bubble makes its way up. But it's already starting to express itself. So this ratio between elementary and high schools and additional staffing has never looked this way, hasn't looked this way in the last decade of increasing student populations that we've seen. So hopefully that helps answer your question. And those EAs on the other side, they're for all schools K to 12.
Any other questions? Ryan?
I like walking. It's okay. Not so much a question, just a comment, a word of praise for the LRSD. What's just over Christian's head, they're adding 2 clinicians. I'd asked what the base was, and it was already 27 clinicians, I think. And I used to be a trustee, and I had no idea these people were, I thought it was teachers and EAs, and that was about it. But It's like a mini RHA in the school division. It's remarkable. You got 29, it's social workers, it's psychologists, it's speech language pathologists, I think. I mean, it's modern education. When I was a kid, you didn't have any of that out there in the school division. So just wanted to praise the division for adding a couple of more people as the enrollment continues to rise. You need more and more of these clinicians. They're not often talked about, but it's a very important part of modern education. So just wanted to praise the division for adding a couple of more.
Thanks, Brian.
Yes, thank you for that, Brian. I just wanted to piggyback on that, that it's very true that it's a good point that schools are doing more and more within society, taking on a larger role than they have in the past when we were younger, with clinicians and with food programs and all these sorts of things. And it's a sometimes overlooked but very important part of our public education system. So thanks for bringing that up.
Any other questions? Oh,
And without those specialists, we wouldn't be able to understand and describe to each other the community we serve. And the complexity of needs that children, young people will find themselves experiencing at any given time.
Well, you know, when you put that back up, look at the needs now of grade 8 students that are now going to be entering your high schools. So I think these high school students, when they're asking, they have a right to be concerned because they're coming into those high schools with a whole lot of problems. And I'm not sure that high schools are going, maybe they're going to have a challenge in front of them. And as far as full day kindergarten, I think it's a nice idea. It's a really nice idea, but I'm really concerned about asking the local taxpayer to fund this. If in fact government thinks that this is a great idea, or if we can convince them that it's a great idea, then that's something different than asking the local taxpayer to do it. And that's my concern, because you can see we have a whole lot of other things to spend money on.
And I'll acknowledge that that's a fair opinion, fair concern.
I was just looking at it. I was happy to see the number for the nutrition program. I think that's an amazing program to put in place. A third of the cost is going to staffing and 2/3 is going to actual food. Is that what I?
The majority of it goes to food. And so first I want to acknowledge that this $1.5 million is a provincial initiative. This is a provincial government saying we need to build a universal nutrition program. And so we've been doing our part for many years as a school division, all school divisions, but these are new dollars. And so you can't spend more than 35% of that 1.5 million on the staff you need to find the food, make the food, serve the food. 65% of it has to go to food.
So I'm just a follow-up to that. My question is, what about implementing a credit program for, say, high school students? So that you don't have to spend 35% on staff when you could open your students' eyes and have them contribute in that community initiative as well.
That's a great idea. And actually we would build on what we're already doing. So we have students, for example, working with our staff in our community kitchen that we've just recently opened at the RDC. And so students are working with that staff, making food, getting credit. And so we absolutely want to build on that. And so what we're saying here is we're not saying we're going to spend 35% of those dollars on staff. We're simply pointing out a detail we've recently learned, that if we were to spend some of this money on staff, it can't exceed 35%.
any other questions? Okay, I have one final question online, and the question is from Chris. What can parents do to show their support for the full day kindergarten initiative to ensure that it happens?
That brings a nice closure to it all.
Did it say it was from Chris? Did I write that? I was busy typing. I didn't know. Yeah, certainly, just, make your feelings known, call us, right here. This is our, what do you call these things? I never. QR code.
Take them to our contact us
Yeah.
page, so that's how trustees will receive
Yeah.
feedback.
Yeah, and you can also, if you're not technologically advanced enough to do that, just go to our website and there's contact us, and we're happy to hear from you. Pro or not pro, but we're always happy to hear the good stuff. So if you're in favor, that would be wonderful to let us know. So, thank you, Chris, for that wonderful question.
On this, Chris.
Chris, too. So, unless there's any more questions, I'll take a final glance. Haven't got our microphone ready. I think we're good.
That was the last question.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming out. It's, thanks for their NSLT and, our staff for, your time. Careful out there, it's cold. And thanks Pam and Jamie and Christian for their invaluable help.
Yes, exactly.
Coffee and goodies. Take some home with you to your kids.